West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Donald Trump and his 18 co-defendants in that RICO indictment must turn themselves in at the Fulton County Jail in Atlanta, Georgia, within 9 days. And there, they will be booked, processed, and have mugshots taken ahead of their arraignments, which District Attorney Fani Willis wants to take place the first week of September. Now, today, Willis also proposed a trial date for this case about the efforts to overturn the 2020 election in Georgia and elsewhere. She requests it begin on March 4th of next year. That is the day before Super Tuesday. Now, of course, there's one name that stands out above all the others in this sweeping indictment. It's listed first, Donald Trump. But the second most well-known name here is, of course, Rudolph William Louis Giuliani. And we've been expecting this for quite some time. We've been expecting to see Rudy Giuliani's name on this indictment ever since prosecutors in Willis's office informed Giuliani he was a target of the investigation about a year ago. But it is still a remarkable fall from grace for a man who was once a pretty widely renowned public figure. Giuliani rose to national prominence as the star United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, a job he held from 1983 to 1989. There, he oversaw the prosecutions of members of the mob, drug dealers, corrupt government officials, earned a tough-on-crime reputation, which he used to launch his political career. After Giuliani became mayor of New York in 1993, he astutely cultivated the image as the man single-handedly responsible, just him, for cleaning up the city and bringing law and order. Then, in the wake of September 11th, he was America's mayor. Rudy was even an early frontrunner for the Republican presidential nomination in 2008, though that didn't go that well. And now here, in the year 2023, at 79 years old, Rudy Giuliani has been indicted for his role in what prosecutors call a criminal enterprise. He's an alleged racketeer, the one-time future president, a disgraced laughingstock. I mean, in recent years, he's been best known for a series of half-comical, half-villainous escapades, like presenting ludicrous claims of voter fraud in front of the Four Seasons Total Landscaping. And at another press conference a few weeks later with hair dye trickling down his sweat-streaked face. His awful and almost unreadable conversations with a subordinate are all over the internet amid a really unsettling sexual harassment lawsuit. He's even a punchline in a Borat movie in the final chapter of his life. Rudy Giuliani is the object of ridicule and scorn. He is reputationally and financially near bankruptcy. He is looking at the possibility of living out the rest of his days on this earth in prison. How did it happen? How did the once clean as a whistle crime fighter, the law and order man, America's mayor, who led us through one of our darkest hours, how did he end up like this? What happened to Rudy? You hear that a lot. I would submit, if you take a closer look, there's a case to be made, Rudy has actually been this version of Rudy the whole time, or at least had it in him. I mean, in fact, Rudy himself made a pretty revealing statement to that effect last night when he emerged from his shame bunker to address the indictment.
This is a ridiculous application of the racketeering statute. There's probably no one that knows it better than I do, probably some that know it as well. I was the first one to use it in white-collar cases. But in major cases like the Boesky case and the Milken case, this is not meant for election disputes. I mean, this is ridiculous what she's doing.
Now, credit for due, Rudy is correct. He really did pioneer the use of racketeering laws, often shorthanded as RICO, to go after white-collar criminals. It was a sort of innovation of his, like Michael Milken, as he mentioned in that interview. He brought RICO charges against the mob, the 5 families in New York, helping to bring down, organized crime in New York. According to new reporting from The Messenger, wise guys are rejoicing in the wake of Giuliani's own RICO indictment. A veteran mob lawyer says his clients are, quote, effing thrilled. Giuliani also used the RICO laws to go after corruption in politics. And one of the ways that he kickstarted his own electoral career in the city of New York was turning his office, the U.S. Attorney's Office, attention to the Democratic political machine of the city, which he was, of course, going to run against in the race for mayor. In 1986, he took down Stanley Friedman on racketeering charges. That was a Democrat from the Bronx, one of New York's most powerful political figures, as the New York Times put it at the time. And by his own admission, Rudy used RICO laws against his political enemies, including the man whose job he wanted, Democratic Mayor Ed Koch.
The RICO statute, I was the first one to use the racketeering statute for public corruption. I did it against most of Ed Koch's administration. Well, Ed wasn't paying attention. Well, they were stealing millions.
Now think about this. The U.S. attorney who clearly wants political office in this city prosecuting the opposing party, right? Using the power to do that. You might uncharitably call that weaponizing the Justice Department for partisan political ends. Now, Giuliani lost his first race for mayor in New York, but he succeeded the second time around after embracing some of the ugliest, most demagogic, racist politics that Donald Trump would later mine to great effect. In September of 1992, he rather infamously appeared at a police rally that turned into an all-out riot, and he refused to ever decry or denounce it. As mayor, Giuliani oversaw an incredible increase in the surveillance and policing of black and brown New Yorkers. In one notorious incident, he demonized an unarmed black man who was shot and killed by the police. Clearly, even his recent turn as the public face of, frankly, racist accusations of voter fraud is not really new.
Tape earlier in the day of Ruby Freeman and Shay Freeman Moss and one other gentleman quite obviously surreptitiously passing around USB ports as if they're vials of heroin or cocaine. I mean, it's obvious to anyone who's a criminal investigator or prosecutor, they are engaged in surreptitious illegal activity again that day.
Now, that was false, and Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss have actually sued Rudy Giuliani for defamation. But that kind of rhetoric, talking about these 2 black women as being drug dealers, stealing an election, that goes way back to the 1989 race for mayor, which Giuliani lost to the first black man elected mayor in New York, David Dinkins. As Giuliani himself told journalist Jack Newfield in an interview he quotes in his 2002 book, The Full Rudy, this is 21 years ago, and I'm quoting him here, "They stole that election from me. They stole votes in the black parts of Brooklyn and in Washington Heights. Illegal Dominican immigrants were allowed to vote in Washington Heights." That sounds familiar, doesn't it? Has a certain ring to it. Let me tell you, as a lifelong New Yorker, reporters in New York City and critics will tell you Rudy Giuliani has always been an absolute Machiavellian operator. So yeah, you might say, what happened to Rudy? Or you could say, this has always been Rudy, all the way to the end.
It is Thursday, the 17th of August of 2023, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef. Precious, our little Yorkie, is our door girl, and she will be seating you directly for our especially special daily special, Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. A little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life. Oh, yes. Just a little, though. A lot of people can't take too much, and too much is sometimes just a little. Okay, philosophy in the culinary world runs rampant, so beware. Oh, a little stiff today. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. It's the amount of years that I've been trudging along on this plane of existence. And this plane of existence is not level and flat. There's rises and falls and obstacles. Lots and lots of obstacles. Speaking of which, what's up with Elon Musk? We're going to get into that. I decided to put the potential Musk obstruction story from Empty Wheel up instead of another story that we had about basket forgeries down in Central Florida. Maybe we'll attend to that later, but I just think that when you've got confirmation bias, hey, let's go for it. All right? Yeah. If they're going to make AI like that, why not just do it with the, actual organic intelligence too? Why does AI get to have it and we don't? Well, you know what they say. It's only what the programmer programmed, and I'm wondering what the hell the programmer was thinking about us. Is that self-hate? Does the big programmer in the sky have self-hate, and that's why we are the way we are? No, I like to think in the chaos of it all. Some life have teeth. Really sharp teeth. Okay? It's not all cuddles. It'd be nice. So anyway, this story about Musk, I think, might have some legs. At least I hope so. So it would confirm my confirmation bias, because you gotta. I try to keep from having confirmation bias, but there's some things that, like when they talk about putting photographs in front of people, subjects in tests, and say, does this face make you want to punch it? I'm sure that they've had those tests. Of course they have. And 9 times out of 10, there's people like Musk's face who you just, I don't know. God, I can't stop myself. Oh. And Musk does have one of those visages, and it totally is because of, look, it's not because of the way he looks. It truly is because of the content of his character. All right? Just saying. But also his look kind of triggers too. So put those two together, and you kind of hope that maybe there's some comeuppance for this stateless actor. That's what I consider him. Every single one of these monster billionaires should first be, maybe they should have a loyalty test. Maybe they should be made to put their hands over their heart and pledge fealty to the Constitution of the United States of America, or else. Oh, no. I'm going to tell you right now, you are going to be hearing just massive calls for prison reform by Republicans, and MAGA Republicans at that, because now they get to see what it's like. Well, the vast majority of them, because I think there's some actors who know exactly what it's like to be in prison because they keep getting busted for grifting off each other. Notice how he did that East Coast accent there at the end? Yes. Mock. Is that all I'm about? Not all. I'm not all about mocking. sometimes. And the mocked need to be mocked. Okay? Let's be clear about it. Otherwise, no one would mock them, and there'd be no need to. That's not to say that I have not been mocked. I'm not pure. I am not without mistakes. I am not without, I don't know, I wouldn't call them demons. Because I don't believe in demons. Spirits. I am possessed by spirits. No, I always wanted to be able to make a joke. I'm possessed by spirits. And then you hold up a martini glass. But that's a little too, I don't know, playboyish. And I never wanted to be a real playboy. Oh, God. And then one must consider how short of a time it takes to make all those mistakes, atone for them, and then try to, right the wrong. There's not much time. Focus, people. Yeah, that's what wisdom is. We all know what wisdom is. Get to at least be verbal enough to tell people, look out. I've been there before by the skin of my teeth. Here I am. Okay, well, Elon Musk is in his 50s, and I think he's making some gross mistakes, but they're not unusual because I've seen the same behavior with other guys who, want to buy a convertible. They reach a certain age, next thing you know, they got to get a convertible. All right, we could go on about that, but we will get into Empty Wheels article because I think it's it lays it out because it's the filings. And just because you're rich doesn't mean that you're exempt from being held to account for breaking the law. You might be able to dick around in the San Francisco city and county. Let's see how much you do, Jack Smith. Who knows? Maybe Musk, when he heard that Jack was at the door, he thought it was the other Jack and says, get him out of here. I'm over that guy. Maybe. All right. Well, all kidding aside, why don't we get into giving you a rundown of what we do have in store for you here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy's Metro Shrimp and Grist Thursdays as we begin in the Bistro Cafe. And yes, there is a case to be made that Rudy has actually been this version of Rudy the whole time. And this is no revelation to many of us who've been saying this since before Rudy went up on the rock pile and became supposedly America's mayor. All right. What he did to Dinkins will never be forgivable. And he never says sorry. I guess he learned from Roy Cohn, too. Who knows? On the rest of the menu, the local Kansas prosecutor behind the controversial police raid on the Marion County Record has agreed to withdraw the search warrant and return items taken from the paper. I just got a Twitter info, and I need to look into it more, but this person purports that the paper and the town are all MAGAs, and it's like friendly fire. I don't know how friendly it is. But if that's the case, hey, why not report on the two big dinosaurs trying to battle each other, and while we little furry mammals scurry around and hope that they both take each other down? We could do that. As Shitter's legal director, we're going to call it Shitter. I like that. With the X. Okay, the X is pronounced shit. As Shitter's legal director stalled the DOJ and Jack Smith, Musk met with McCarthy, then Jim Jordan, twice. And the Colorado River Basin ranks among the world's most water-stressed regions. We're burning up, and I got to tell you, my water feature with the fountain, I got to be careful because the water is evaporating out of there in a way that I really haven't seen before, and I don't want to live like that. We have to stop fueling this atmosphere, please. After the break, we move to the chef's table where the Czech Republic completed the ratification of a defense treaty with the United States that makes it easier to deploy U.S. troops in Czech territory. I guess that's rattling the saber, huh? Hey, Vlad, you thinking about expanding? Well, think again. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because Vlad is on, you know what Vlad is on. And, speaking of which, Russia's foreign ministry informed a Dutch journalist who has lived and worked in the country for 10 years her visa would not be renewed, and gave her 6 days to pack up and get out. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln, and we thank Kelly for doing so. Across the page to the left from that chat room link, near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, is the link to our Patreon page. And if you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, it really does help. And all kidding aside, because we sort of get jocular at this point, as if we never stop being jocular. But nonetheless, your help is greatly appreciated, and I'll tell you how you can help. If you could send us what you might spend on an espresso-type coffee drink once a month, we're able to pool those funds with the funds that have been generously patronaged to us by like-minded individuals just like you, and sometimes they're couples, families. Gosh. Anyway, we're able to take those funds, conglomerate it all together, dig deep into our own pockets as well, and then we're able to pay our bills. Isn't that an amazing thing? We do that. Yeah, the Law and Order party over there, they make up the laws and they tell you what the order's going to be. But we pay our bills because it's not only like criminal not to do so, it is the right thing to do. And somehow the I don't know, the algorithm lets us slide by. Jeez, we can get away with a lot if you just pay your bills. So we do. Thank you for allowing us to fulfill our civic duty as the founders originally intended so many years ago. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Shitter, we're still there. If you want to follow us on Twitter, Mastodon, and Spoutable Netroots Radio, you can do so by going to @Netroots Radio, and Tom takes care of @Netroots Radio. Thank you, Tom. Follow me on Shitter. Let's see. Also, Mastodon, Spoutable, Blue Sky, really anywhere online you can find me at Justice Putnam. And I post the show notes and links diary 10 minutes before showtime. And that's so that you folk out there can read the actual articles, because it's just the right thing to do. All right? Show your work. You can also follow the show on Twitter. It's just a placemat. I will activate it into something a bit more grand on the other platforms real soon. I promise, and I've been promising for a long time, I know, but I'm busy. Anyway, you can follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West. And most importantly, if you could pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., that would be grand as well. So please pick up podcasts there. Just not on Stitcher anymore. Never again on Stitcher. Thank you, SiriusXM. Thank you a lot. Damn them. Okay. Alrighty. Looks like I can hear a street sweeper in the background. Uh-oh. They're coming in. Hold on just a second. Sorry about that. I had to mute the mic for a few moments. I apologize for the lag there, but it was really, really much too loud, truly. Okay, maybe they're going to make their way back around again. Oh no. Hopefully it'll be when we make our little interlude to the next chapter. Okay, anyway. Let us now tuck into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And it is by Paul Farhi out of the Washington Post. After nearly a week of intense criticism and national headlines, the local prosecutor behind a controversial raid on a Kansas newspaper office has agreed to withdraw the search warrant and return items taken from the paper. The reversal, first reported by TV station KSHB and confirmed by the attorney for the Marion County Record, followed days of outraged reactions from press advocacy groups which called the police seizure a violation of state and federal laws. Attorney Bernard Rhodes told the Washington Post, that County Attorney Joel Enzi withdrew the warrant on Wednesday yesterday and would return computer, cell phones, and records taken by Marion police and sheriff's deputies from the newspaper headquarters in the home of Eric Meyer, its publisher and editor. Okay, that's pretty loud. We're just going to struggle on. Now, a day after the raid, Meyer's 98-year-old mother, Joan Meyer, collapsed and died. The newspaper attributed her death to stress brought on by the search of the home she shared with her son. While the newspaper and Meyer now appear to be out of legal jeopardy, Rhodes suggested that it is unlikely to be the end of the incident. He urged state officials to investigate how the raid came about, including the role played by Marion Police Chief Gideon Cody, who led the search. The Record had been investigating Cody's departure from the Kansas City, Missouri police force this year, and he had threatened to sue the paper if it published allegations of misconduct. Well, apparently there's a lot of things you can't try in a small town. And as prefaced earlier, this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays is by Empty Wheel from her blog, the Empty Wheel blog. Elon Musk has been eerily quiet about being held in contempt by Beryl Howell since the D.C. Circuit opinion was first released on August 9. And it's not like him to pass up the opportunity to make an obnoxious comment, which is why I'm interested in what Musk was doing during the period when Shitter's counsel was stalling on the DOJ request, including a visit to Kevin McCarthy on January 26. Beryl Howell approved the warrant on January 17th. After several failed attempts, the government served it to the official portal on January 19th. But when Shitter's senior-most legal person stalled for 12 days until she told the DOJ that Twitter was going to make a First Amendment challenge so Trump could invoke executive privilege. But the legal director's declaration is more obnoxious than that. She made no mention of DOJ's attempts to serve the warrant before she got involved and makes much of a claim that it took the attorney's office 2 efforts to email a separate copy to her. Her assurances that everything was preserved, made as of January 25th, did not rule out any deletions before that. It wasn't until February 1st that Wilmer Hale was officially involved, and in the meantime, Musk made a widely covered trip to D.C. He met with Jim Jordan on Thursday, January 26th, Kevin McCarthy that evening, and then Jordan again with James Comer the next day. And that's according to Axios, the New York Times, and CNN. As of now, at least Jordan and McCarthy are two of the just 51 people that Trump follows who could have sent him DMs. The next week, Comer formally announced his dick pics hearing, which, as Allison Gill observed yesterday, that would be Wednesday, took place the day between two hearings on the warrant, as contempt fees started piling up. In that hearing, Republicans spun Musk's willful violation of the consent decree against Twitter as an assault on the First Amendment. As it was happening, Musk posted a tweet with nothing more but a period. Now, this was happening in the period when Twitter was doing more intensive searches to get, for example, the second preservation of Trump's account from January 12th of 2021 and all other accounts assorted via common device, cookie, or IP with Trump's own. And in the February 7 hearing, then Chief Judge Burl Howe questioned whether Twitter was stalling on the production because Musk wants to cozy up with the former president, and that's why you are here? That's what she said, but it may be more than that. Musk is solidly part of the far-right culture that might have been involved in any DM-less organizing the insurrection. One of the entire reasons he started considering buying Twitter is because of the efforts Twitter took in the aftermath of to the crackdown on violence. And in the lead-up to Musk's purchase of Twitter, someone, and there's reason to believe it might be Stephen Miller, who had been interviewed by Jack Smith's prosecutors in November before he was interviewed in a privileged waived interview in April, texted Musk personally to raise the sensitivities of restoring Trump to Twitter. Any delays and obstruction may not just be an effort to protect Trump. It could be Musk's effort to protect his own network and people in D.C. like Jim Jordan. Ian James, a staff writer with the Los Angeles Times, brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A research effort tracking water scarcity around the world shows California, Arizona, and other western states are experiencing water stress at high levels similar to arid countries such as Saudi Arabia and Qatar. The analysis by researchers for the World Resources Institute found that all 7 states that rely on the Colorado River face high or extremely high water stress. Arizona ranked first for the most severe water stress in the country, followed by New Mexico and Colorado, while California ranked 5th. The analysis found that 25 countries with about 1/4 of the world's population are exposed to extremely high water stress. Those countries include Bahrain, Cyprus, Lebanon, Israel, Chile, Jordan, Greece, and Tunisia, among others. The United States as a whole doesn't meet the threshold to be considered a country with high water stress, but if you were only to count the Colorado River Basin, it would be one of the most stressed countries in the world. All right, let us now go to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Hi, this is Your Health Quickly, a Scientific American podcast series.
We highlight the latest vital health news, discoveries that affect your body and your mind.
And we break down the medical research to help you stay healthy. I'm Tanya Lewis.
I'm Josh Fishman.
We're Scientific American senior health editors. On today's show, we're talking about a surprising way to slow cognitive decline, hearing aids. But unfortunately, most people who need them don't get them.
Hey, Tanya, I learned a new weird thing about the screwy U.S. health insurance system this week.
Oh yeah? What's that?
Health insurance doesn't cover hearing aids.
Not at all?
No, not at all. It often doesn't cover hearing exams either.
That's weird, since hearing loss is a medical problem.
I know, but I was talking with Lydia Denworth, who writes Scientific American Science of Health column, and here's what she told me.
So the average pair of hearing aids that you would get through an audiologist will run you $4,700. Most private insurance doesn't cover it, and Medicare doesn't cover hearing aids. I mean, it's crazy.
And what's really absurd is that hearing loss makes a bunch of other medical problems worse. So hearing aids could help. And one of those things they can help with is cognitive decline. That's actually the reason Lydia and I started talking about this. There's a really important study that she just found out about.
This study was presented in July at the international meeting of the Alzheimer's Association, and it was one of their headline studies. This was the first of its kind, randomized trial, and it's nearly 1,000 adults, older adults between 70 and 84, with untreated hearing loss.
About half of that group got hearing aids, and among them, some were already showing some indications of cognitive decline. They were less healthy.
The older, less healthy group, the people who got hearing aids slowed the rate of cognitive change by about half.
That's a pretty big effect. So when you say the hearing aids slowed the rate of decline by half, what does that mean exactly? That they declined half as much as people would have without them?
Yeah, that's it. The people took tests that measured their cognitive function every few months over the course of 3 years. And the group without hearing aids kept going down, kind of a steep slope. But the group that had the aids held on to their abilities much better. Over those 3 years, their mental state was almost twice as good as the people without hearing aids.
That's pretty impressive. This might be a good time to define what we mean by cognitive decline, though. As I understand it, it's basically normal memory decline that happens with aging, not full-blown Alzheimer's, right?
Right. Yeah, it's not Alzheimer's or some other kind of dementia that makes it impossible for you to remember family members and awful things like that. Cognitive decline is much more mild. It's like going into a supermarket and not remembering one of the items on your shopping list, that sort of thing. So you can still, function every day. You can hold down a job. You can take care of your family, but your mind isn't quite working as smoothly or as fast as it used to.
Right, yeah. So it's more like day-to-day forgetfulness that we all experience as we get older. But I guess if there were an intervention like wearing hearing aids that might slow that decline, it seems like it'd be a pretty worthwhile thing.
Yeah, it's sort of like giving a pill. And in this study, it's not giving it to other people and seeing the pill's effect. And in this case, the pill was hearing aids. And the message is that more people could benefit from them.
So it seems like hearing aids could really help a lot of people stay more mentally sharp. Do you know if people who need hearing aids are actually getting them?
Sadly, they don't. Here's Lydia again.
Unfortunately, too many people do not think of hearing aids in that way. And in fact, we estimate that only 15 to 25% of adults who would benefit from hearing aids are actually using them.
Wow, that's like just a really tiny amount.
It's a tiny amount for something that really can be very, very helpful. And there are a bunch of reasons for that.
Lydia already talked about one of the reasons people don't wear them, the high cost and lack of insurance coverage. What are some of the other barriers?
There's stigma attached still to hearing aids. Many, many people feel that they are a sign of aging. They don't look at them the way they look at wearing glasses, even though it is essentially the same thing. You wear hearing aids to help you hear better, just like you wear glasses.
That's a great point. I wear glasses, and so do you, Josh. So why the stigma for hearing aids?
Well, I think one of the reasons is that traditionally they were big. There's this large thing sticking in your ear, right? And people look at that as an oddity.
Yeah, I guess that's true. And I guess a lot of people wear glasses almost as like a fashion statement too. And a lot of younger people wear glasses, so it's probably less stigmatized than hearing aids, which we typically associate with aging.
Right. You don't get your Calvin Klein hearing aids.
I mean, that would be great.
We're a vain set of people. I don't know.
I can see how wearing bulky hearing aids would make you feel self-conscious. But have they gotten any smaller?
Lydia says that they have.
They have improved a lot. You can get in the canal aids that, really can barely be seen. But I also think that one of the things that stopped people was just that they didn't think it mattered that much. People thought of hearing loss as you age just as kind of one of the things that happens. It sneaks up on you and you're not always aware of the amount of loss you have because you're not getting checked regularly. Doctors do not routinely screen necessarily for hearing.
In fact, most primary care providers don't check. Tanya, have you had a hearing test?
Not since I was a little kid, I'm pretty sure.
I had one a couple of years ago, actually, because I noticed that I wasn't hearing as well in my right ear as my left. When I noticed this difference, I went to, and here is my hard science word of the week, an otolaryngologist. And it is so much easier to say ear, nose, and throat doctor. Anyway, they put me in a soundproof booth, put big earcan headphones on me, and then played a series of tones at different volumes. And I was supposed to click a button when I heard a tone. It turned out that my right ear was a little worse. I couldn't hear some of the higher frequencies.
So has that been a problem for you?
What? Huh? Say that again?
Very cute. But seriously, has it?
Really, no. It's mostly not. I hear you just fine. Sometimes at a party or a noisy restaurant, a high-pitched voice kind of fades out against that general background hubbub. And I actually feel bad when that happens, but it doesn't happen often.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all have had experiences at a cocktail party or something where you just can't always hear the conversation. But if you don't mind me asking, did the doctors recommend hearing aids for you?
Nope. They said I was within the range of normal for my age, but to let them know if things got worse.
Well, that's good. But like Lydia said, a lot of people who really could use hearing aids are not getting them. And they can help with other things besides cognitive issues. I've read that older people with hearing loss fall more often because your ears are tied into your sense of balance. And there's more isolation and loneliness. Is the lack of social connection one of the reasons for the faster cognitive decline?
Yeah, it is. But there are other things that are going on in the brain with hearing impairment that also hasten cognitive problems. There's this sort of real estate grab that other areas of the brain make on the part of the brain that's involved with hearing. So when you get less sound coming into the brain, the auditory cortex, the neurons there get quieter, and neurons in surrounding areas, ones that are involved with vision or touch, they sort of see these neurons like vacant houses and go, oh, here's an area that I can move into and grab and use it for myself. So the auditory area in your brain actually gets smaller.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense that, it's sort of use it or lose it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And also what's happening is because of that, you're actually working harder to hear any particular sentence. You're kind of concentrating on taking in the syllables, and you're not concentrating on things like the overall meaning of the sentence. It's what the scientists call an increased cognitive load.
Well, the good news is hearing aids are becoming easier to afford and more available. Last year, the FDA approved some hearing aids that can be sold over the counter. You can get them at places like Walgreens and Costco.
And those are much less expensive. Here's Lydia again.
Even though they're called over the counter, it's not a great idea just to buy them the way you would a bottle of aspirin. You still benefit from some help in understanding how they work and in making sure that you are getting a pair that will work well for you. And within the over-the-counter set of products, there's a real range of quality. I have heard from some audiologists that anything under about $400 is probably not worth it. Most of them tend to fall between $500 and $1,000 now, which is still substantially less than what hearing aids would run in the 4,000s.
So I guess it's good to know what you're buying. Some of these over-the-counter models come with smartphone apps that help you customize them to work for you. And sometimes you can also get help at community health centers. Some have audiologists or other people with hearing aids themselves who've been trained in making adjustments, and they can help you out.
Well, that's really helpful, but I guess there's still the stigma hurdle. Although these days, it's not unusual to have something in your ears.
And Lydia points that out.
And one of the other hopes is that now that so many of us wear earbuds and Bluetooth, devices and things on our heads, that it doesn't look so odd to have something on your head, and that maybe that will kind of normalize.
And popular headphone companies like Jabra are starting to make hearing aids too, right?
Right.
They are going to be marketing to consumers directly, and that's going to begin to change our perceptions, I think, of what it is to treat your hearing, and if everybody's doing it and everybody's trying to hear better, we destigmatize this idea.
Better brain health, lower cost help, and everybody's doing it. I hope that's a message that everyone hears. You can read more about the link between hearing aids and brain health in Lydia's new Science of Health column at scientificamerican.com.
Your Health Quickly is produced by Talika Bose, Jeff Delvisio, Kelso Harper, Corinne Leong, and by us. It's edited by Ella Fetter and Alexa Lim. Our music is composed by Dominic Smith.
Our show is part of Scientific American's podcast, Science Quickly. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you like the show, give us a rating or a review. And if you have ideas for topics we should cover, send us an email at yourhealthquickly@sciam.com. That's yourhealthquickly@sciam.com. I'm Tanya Lewis.
I'm Josh Fishman.
We'll be back in 2 weeks. Thanks for listening.
You are tuned in and turned on. Independent programming on networksradio.com.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1985. That was the day that workers at the Hormel plant in Austin, Minnesota went out on strike. They were members of the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, Local P9. Hormel had slashed workers' wages by 23% during the early 1980s. Benefits were also diminished and incentive programs rolled back. These changes cut deeply into the Hormel workers' earnings. What had been considered a good job was changing drastically. This was the story for many workers in Reagan-era America. The 3,500 Hormel workers voted overwhelmingly to strike. The National UFCW discouraged the action. The strike lasted more than a year. Strikebreakers were brought in, including some of the union members who crossed the picket line to return to work. The National Guard was called in to keep the peace between strikers and the scabs. After a year, the strike went down in defeat. Even after the strike, many of the workers were not called back to work. They were put on waiting lists for a job to reopen. Some never returned to the plant. 25 years after the strike, the Austin Daily Herald staff wrote, quote, "What resulted was a bitter, drawn-out labor dispute that drastically impacted the community, from workers who lost their jobs to families that were torn apart by the picket lines." The strike became the feature of a documentary by Barbara Koppel. In 1990, the documentary American Dream won the Academy Award. The film tells the story of the Hormel strike as a window into the tragic experiences of many workers during the 1980s. The film was made on a shoestring budget. Singer Bruce Springsteen provided $25,000 to help support this important film.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. A little bit of jambalaya. A little bit of spice in your life. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 71 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting highs in the upper 90s, which should be much cooler, and it better be much cooler than yesterday. We were over 115 right outside the front door here at the mothership yesterday. Don't want to feel that again real soon. Looks like we'll have partly cloudy skies this morning and will become generally overcast during the afternoon. Let's see, winds out of the west-southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Mostly cloudy skies this evening will become partly cloudy after midnight. Lows in the mid to upper 60s, so a little bit cooler nights. And then partly cloudy tomorrow. Winds will be out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour overnight. Then, as I mentioned, partly cloudy tomorrow with a stray shower or thunderstorm possible from the hurricane that is blowing up the west coast. And let's hope that we get some rain. We want it. Highs will be in the low to mid-90s, winds out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Grass pollen is rated low here in our little town of Rogue River. The air quality index for the region is in the good range at 26 parts per million, and that daytime UV index is in the high range at level 7. Barometric pressure is rising at 29.86 inches. Visibility is up to 9 miles, and relative humidity is at 62%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that's the Weather Underground. Literally, it's the Weather Underground. London is 74 degrees and mostly cloudy. Paris is 83 and sunny. Rome is 90 degrees and fair. Kabul is 75 and clear. Kyiv is 82 and fair. Hong Kong is 84 degrees and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 83 and fair. Melbourne, Victoria, Australia is 50 degrees with light rain. San Francisco, California is 62 degrees and mostly cloudy. Chicago, Illinois is 70 degrees and mostly cloudy. And New York, New York is 78 degrees Fahrenheit and mostly cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Staff at the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy's Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. A little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life. The Czech Republic yesterday, Wednesday, completed the ratification of a defense treaty with the United States that deepens military cooperation and makes it easier to deploy U.S. troops in Czech territory. Czech Prime Minister Petr Fiala's signature was the final step in the ratification process of the Defense Cooperation Agreement, which had been endorsed by both houses of Parliament in July and by President Petr Pavel on August 1st. The document sets a legal framework for possible deployment of U.S. troops in the country at a time of Russian aggression in Ukraine. Czech Defense Minister Jana Černochovič signed the treaty together with U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin in Washington, D.C. on May 23rd. The U.S. has similar agreements with 24 other NATO members, including Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Romania, and Bulgaria, that form the eastern flank of the alliance. Any deployment of U.S. forces would still need approval by the Czech government and Parliament.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Dasha Litvinova of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Russian authorities refused to renew the visa for Dutch journalist Eva Hartog, who has lived and worked in the country for 10 years, and gave her 6 days to leave Russia. Her effective expulsion is one of several in recent years and comes amid a months-long crackdown that the Kremlin has unleashed on independent journalists, critical news outlets, opposition activists, and human rights groups. The pressure has mounted further since Moscow launched its war on Ukraine almost 18 months ago. Hartog, a Dutch national, has in recent years been writing for the Dutch news magazine De Groene Amsterdammer and for Political Europe. She first came to Moscow in 2013, Politico reported yesterday, Wednesday, and worked as a web editor and then chief editor for the Moscow Times. Hartog said in a column in De Groene Amsterdammer, published yesterday, Wednesday, that Russia's foreign ministry informed her last Monday her visa would not be renewed and gave her 6 days to leave. Politico said Hartog was told the decision was made by the relevant authorities, but no additional information was given to her. She has since left Russia. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and you know it will. And we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre. Tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre. Tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.